Semiconductors are kind of looked at as the new arms race, the weapons in the new arms race.
The United States and China are at war. And no, it's not that type of war. It's a war on semiconductors. Something very tiny, but yet very important.
U.S. trade restrictions continuing to make an impact on semiconductor companies such as NVIDIA.
NVIDIA's CFO warning that China sales will drop significantly in the fourth quarter.
The Biden administration is trying to cap China's access to advanced AI chips, but that said, are these curbs too little, too late?
The threat from China is large and growing. China wants access to our most sophisticated semiconductors, and we cannot afford to give them that access. So we did something unprecedented. We said that we're not just going to deny a single company in China access to our semiconductor technology, we're going to deny the whole country.
This war affects you and I. It doesn't matter where you live in the world today. And from recent happenings, the United States seems to have helped speed up China's advanced chip sector, which is in turn affecting their own chip industry. But first, what are semiconductors and why do they even matter so much? In the simplest terms, semiconductors are tiny chips that power just about every piece of technology that we use daily, from our laptops to cars to household appliances like your fridge and microwave. They are all powered by microchips. Actually, semiconductors are very crucial not just for consumer electronics, but also for critical sectors like healthcare, automotive, and defense sectors. They are actually the backbone of modern civilization. Take this smartphone for instance. Without semiconductors, this device would be nothing more than an expensive paperweight. Now, these tiny chips handle everything from processing power to connectivity and are the brains behind modern electronics that we all see today. It is the reason why we are able to experience all the cool tech we see everywhere. But there is a problem. Most of these microchips are made by a single company here in Taiwan, and that is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, TSMC. Actually, Taiwan produces over 90% of the world's most advanced chips, reason why the United States has been very interested in Taiwan, which has led to multiple tensions around that area in recent years. So many people have been waiting for World War III, but we might just be experiencing a war already. Just not the type of war with fighter jets and bullets, but it is this tech war, and semiconductors are at the center of it all.
To be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
This is about outcompeting China. We need to invest in America, invest in American manufacturing capacity, invest in American workers and skill, get back into the business of investing in basic research where we have fallen behind. If we act now, we can't dilly-dally, let's take action, we will compete with China.
The United States has been sending series of multiple shots at China with aims to limit their tech sector in general, and of course their chip production in particular. So how did we get here? The story begins with the escalating tech rivalry between the United States and China, and the US has long been a leader in semiconductor technology globally. But China's rapid advancement in this field has been unsettling for American policymakers, which has pushed the United States to take drastic measures to curb China's chip industry growth. In October of 2018, former US President Donald Trump cut off Chinese chip maker Fujian Jinhua integrated circuit from its US suppliers, and this action sparked a series of further disputes between the United States and China. And around January of 2020, the Trump administration further pressured the Dutch manufacturer ASML from selling its most advanced lithography machine to Chinese firms. which is very important in chip making. In the same May of 2020, semiconductor shipments to China's Huawei technologies were blocked by Trump's administration. And this was closely followed by the US adding China's top chip maker, SMIC, and many other Chinese tech firms to a trade blacklist, which limited them from acquiring advanced semiconductors for their tech. And it even got worse when US chip firm NVIDIA said US officials have ordered them to stop exporting top-level chips to China, which can be used for AI development. A little bit further, even when US President Joe Biden took over, his administration has maintained even more export controls and sanctions to ensure that China is completely cut off from acquiring advanced semiconductor chips made anywhere in the world. And this included Netherlands ASML being pressured in June of 2023 to drastically reduce sales of top-grade ASML chip-making equipment to China. Now, all these sanctions were designed to curb China's technological advancements and, of course, as set by the US officials to protect US national security. But the big question here is, did these sanctions work as intended, or did they backfire in ways no one could have predicted on the US economy? What is the future for the chip-making industry in the United States? Well, it has become evidently clear that whoever controls the market supply of global tech and chip production will definitely control the world and the future. Reason why I believe President Biden said in a statement last year that they can't rely on products from China alone, leading to a switch towards Mexico and other options because they see China as a threat. The United States has been keen on ensuring that Taiwan remains under its influence, partly to secure its semiconductor supply chain. And from recent news, this stance contrasts sharply with China's desire to maintain Taiwan's unity with the mainland, which adds another layer of complexity to the US-China tech war. Despite multiple sanctions on China's tech industry, China has stood still. In fact, China has ramped up its efforts to develop its own semiconductor industry by pouring more support into the chip industry for innovation and research. Huawei, for instance, released the Mate 60 Pro last September 2023 and the Pura series in April of 2024, showcasing significant advancements in their homemade chip technology, despite all the multiple US restrictions. Now, for chips, we should understand that the higher the number, the smaller the capacity, and vice versa, meaning the smaller chips can definitely do much more. So as the US has been getting to 5 nanometer and 3 nanometer chips, China has been struggling with 10 and 7 nanometer chips due to the multiple restrictions from the United States on China's chip industry globally. Reason why China had already started working hard on research and innovation for their own chip making industry. The launch of the Mate series by Huawei in 2023 was definitely a huge blow to the US officials and sanctions, because despite the fact that it was a 7 nanometer chip, the Mate series was released around the same time when the US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo was visiting China. China further announced the manufacturing of the 5 nanometer chips, which clearly shows that China has had a huge breakthrough into making these chips and might just keep getting more and more advanced. And of course, this shows that it has only taken China less than a year to move from 7 nanometer chips to 5 nanometer chips, much faster than anticipated. And there are many plans to make 3 nanometer chips very soon by Huawei. So after multiple research on these chips by the US Commerce Department, US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said the chips are not as advanced as they seem, which means the US sanctions towards China's chip industry are definitely working. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Companies like NVIDIA, which rely heavily on the Chinese market, are starting to feel the pinch. NVIDIA CFO even warned that these restrictions could lead to a permanent loss of opportunities, of course, for US companies in one of the world's largest markets, because as we all know, China definitely has a huge market for these chips because regular citizens like you and I hardly buy these chips for our own personal use. Just companies, and most of these companies that use these semiconductors are found in China. So if the United States loses the market and China starts growing its own semiconductor industry, that would definitely be a big problem.
China raising $48 billion in funding for a new chip fund as it looks to ramp up competition with the United States.
China unveiled its largest ever semiconductor investment initiative aiming to bolster domestic chip production and reduce reliance on foreign technologies.
Now, with China fighting back by investing heavily in its own research and development while developing its own homegrown semiconductor technologies, as seen in Huawei's latest smartphones, the US and other global chip suppliers that had bowed to the US government's pressure and sanctions are now losing a huge market and faced with a new fast-growing competitor who is now supplying chips to other smaller consumers, and that is China. The ripple effects are already being felt across the industry in the United States, from the loss of revenue for US tech giants to increased competition from a rapidly advancing China. And as the tech war intensifies, it's clear that these sanctions are restricting the global semiconductor landscape in ways that could have lasting impacts on us all. So what does this really mean for us? What does it mean for you and I? I believe the United States' hidden motive behind these sanctions appear to be able to maintain their global technological dominance. But the big problem and the unintended consequences are really significant because these sanctions are not only hurting US companies and workers, but also accelerating China's push for self-reliance in the semiconductor technology industry. The situation and effects of US sanctions on China is a really complex one with no clear winners as of yet, and as we move forward, the stakes are higher than ever, and only time will tell who will come out on top in this high-stakes battle for technological supremacy. I'll always be here to give you all the full information on this topic. Feel free to like this video, subscribe to this channel for more weekly videos like this. Remember, this is William. See you next time.